What happens when trauma becomes a calling? Dr. Ed Tick's life began with visions, loss, and abuse, and it led him to a lifelong mission of healing the invisible wounds of war. A pioneer in the psychospiritual healing of PTSD, Ed has worked with veterans across the world, led pilgrimages to sacred lands, and shown us how true healing requires the wisdom of the soul. As a veteran myself, I am very curious as to where this conversation is going to go. Now, before we dive in, if you're here because you're seeking truth, healing, and transformation, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who's ready for their own awakening. Every conversation here is meant to inspire your journey and remind you you're not alone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm very excited to be with you also. And I want to start by saying I honor your service to our country and in the military, and ever since in the work you're doing and the way you're helping bring truth and light and healing out to everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I do my best and I keep walking through my own journey. So it's always a fun time, you know? So yeah.
Oh, and we're always traveling our journey no matter what we're doing. And when we're working with others, we're also, of course, working on ourselves and healing ourselves. Ideally, we are healing together, growing and healing together.
That's right. And I always say we're walking each other home. I cannot remember where I heard that from, but I say that all the time. So yes, agreed.
Yes.
Okay. So I've really been looking forward to this conversation. So what I'd like to start with is, can you go a little bit deeper into the trauma you experienced and how your personal healing journey got you where you are today and into the work you're doing now?
I will try to do that in an abbreviated way. Otherwise, we could easily take a whole hour for that story.
Believe me, I've had that happen before. So just do the best you can. It's okay. The information is more important. So we'll see how this works out.
Okay. So, trying to be brief. I was born in the inner city Bronx in 1951. I was surrounded, but of course, by World War II veterans. Everybody was, except for all the refugees. So immigrants and refugees from Europe, not just from World War II and Hitler's Europe, but World War I and the pogroms and all of the crises in Europe. So I grew up, and it was the inner city Bronx with lots of inner city and racial violence. So I was born into a modern American war zone, and I was surrounded by traumatized people, of course, none of whom were talking about it. So I didn't know at the time.
They didn't know how back then.
No, they didn't know how, and they didn't talk.
Right.
They didn't. Gonna have to scroll through a few things quickly. I had a vision when I was 4 years old in my tiny tenement room on the 5th floor of our Bronx apartment building. In the middle of the night, it's a long, beautiful story, but we don't have time for the whole thing. So briefly, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I saw a beautiful psychedelic colored butterfly flying around my room, and I watched it for a long time in absolute wonder. I called my parents. My father just grunted and went back to bed. My mother said it was a nightmare, go back to sleep. But it wasn't a nightmare. I was sitting up watching it. I was wide awake. And I didn't learn until an adult, doing my scholarly work, that in ancient Greek, the word for butterfly is psyche. And the word for soul in ancient Greek is psyche. And when with the prefix psyche anytime, it's the soul. It's not the mind. The word for mind is nous, and we have the word gnostic. That's using the mind, the intellect to try to discover truth. But psyche is soul. I'm jumping into my adult work already, but no, I'll go back.
It's whatever you need to do is okay. I'm all ears.
The butterfly woke me up. It woke up my soul. I was a 4-year-old Bronx street kid, and suddenly I just knew I was present. I felt my own presence, saw strangely, sadly, how kind of lost and ignorant almost everybody around me was. And I also realized later that my parents' rejection of the vision was part of the vision, letting me know not everybody can see the spirit world. In fact, most people can't or won't or will deny it. So that woke me up. Okay. Same time of life, uh, within the same year, my grandmother died. And very shortly after she died, I had a vivid dream in which same Bronx apartment building. My family was outside the building sitting on the sidewalk, and I heard our doorbell ring, but we were on the fifth floor, so it couldn't be. And my mother's in the dream said, "You're ridiculous. All right, go around the front of the building and see if anybody's there." So I went, I got to the front of the building, and I looked up at our window 5 floors up, and I saw my grandmother's spirit, young again and renewed, and her cancer all gone, and
Mm.
flying away peacefully and say, "Goodbye, goodbye." And I was the only one there and the only one who saw it in the dream. Again, my family denied the reality of spirituality, and I
Mm.
was the only one who saw it. Those two, an early dream and an early vision, changed my life, woke me up to the reality of soul, and that we can connect and we can see the invisible. It can be make itself known to us.
So, um, you say the Bronx, you say inner city, and you say 1951. So my background is Eastern European. So I already am picking out bits and pieces here and there of what your ancestry would be, which all has something to do with this too, I feel. So where is your family from?
My family is Eastern European Jewish.
Okay.
My On my mother's side, so my great grandparents came here in the 1880s from Austria-Hungary on my mother's side. So we know almost nothing about them. My father's parents, came from my grandfather from Poland, my grandmother from Russia. They both survived and escaped the pogroms. And my grandfather was also honestly fleeing Poland from World War I because he knew Jews did not survive the Polish army. And
Well,
so they all came here and they all had what we now call PTSD, of
right,
course. And
right.
it was passed on to my father from his childhood. So there's transgenerational PTSD in my family. And we don't know about the ancestors on either side before that. But uh, peasant Jews in Poland and Russia, we
Yeah.
know they were abused and traumatized. One of my grandmother's siblings was left behind in Russia, and he died in the concentration camps. So we have that also. And like you as an empath, I'm the only one in my family who's investigated these, felt them, grieved them, looked for their stories, pray for my ancestors, talk to them in meditation. They're helping me now.
You and I have a lot in common because I was also raised Jewish and a lot of my family came from uh, Russia, Ukraine. My mother was born in Czechoslovakia in 1932, so she was 4 when all the stuff started with World War II there, and they escaped Prague, which is what was annexed in 1938, to go to
Mhm.
Palestine at the time. So there was this whole ancestral healing process because I have all the paperwork from when that happened for my grandma or for my mother and my grandfather. Even my grandmother looked so happy and healthy in 1930 uh 34, 35, 34. I've got a picture of her and my mother together and they look, everything was good, you know and then I've got pictures of them and information from my grandmother of all these health issues and all these different things that started once they ended up in Germany in 1958. And I tracked all this stuff. So I used all of that to do my own healing work. And I too contacted and connected and did, different types of work with releasing the energies and grieving. And it's just been, that's why I was really excited because you and I have like a lot of connections in different things here. But I want to tell you, I was told by my ancestors that because of the experiences that they had, and not just them, but Native American ancestors and African ancestors and all the different, they're here to help us. When we do the work that you are talking about, they can help us because we're not only healing them, they're healing us, but then they are able to, if we do the grief work for them, and they're able to come back out and not feel so helpless. Like you had mentioned something earlier when we were talking, they don't, it feels like they don't feel helpless anymore. I mean, it's weird, but even the pictures, their faces have changed on my altar. I've got my ancestors on there. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I just find it fascinating that we have so much in common. But why don't you finish up with how all, finish your story, finish up with how it led into the work that you do, all that stuff, and then we'll go from there with the ancestors since it came up.
All right, so back to the Bronx. One more story from my early childhood. Also about the same year, so about 4 years old. You remember those neighborhoods? Every street had its gang, and every kid had to be a member of the gang. So at 4 years old, I was a member of the street gang, of course, and the 4-year-olds were mascots. You march with us, you walk with us, you fight with us, you steal bubble gum for us, and we're training, which is actually
Yeah.
in a shadow way. It's an early version of military training. So here's the other memory, and it's also predicting my entire life. At 4 years old, my gang went to the empty lot at the corner of our street to have a gang war with the Puerto Rican gang from the next street over. The older kids were fighting with fists and rocks and sticks and broken bottles and screaming and really hurting each other. And I sat down in the dirt with a little Puerto Rican boy my own age, and we became friends. And we picked up sticks and we started to build a little castle out of the dirt. And we had little sticks for people and rocks and stuff. And we looked at each other and we said, at 4 years old, we're having much more fun than the older kids and then our gangs. Why don't they sit down here and play with us instead of kill each other? I had no idea that was predicting my career or my calling, but it was.
From a
That's,
four-year-old too, the knowledge, yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And
Wow.
the universe knows and the hints along the journey the universe gives us. So we can also, I know we share this, but share with our audience the importance of watching for what we call synchronistic events, strange happenings that appear in our lives that are actually like road signs.
Mhm.
Walk this way, follow this. The universe is talking to you and telling you how
Mm,
to move forward.
all the time.
Yes, all the time. Carl Jung called these a-causal connecting principles. A-causal. They're not linear, cause, effect, cause, effect. They are an expression of how the whole universe is knit together at every moment.
Mhm.
And a piece of that is revealing to us to help us find our way in the whole.
And nothing is linear, though. The universe isn't linear. Only our time that we have been, I don't know how to say this in a good way, but so graciously given by those in the past that decided linear time was more important than actually living with nature. We got this way of living and now we feel trapped. I mean, that doesn't help us to understand how to actually live our lives in a good
Right.
way. Yeah.
Right. For all of us, our psycho spiritual growth needs to go from this to
Mhm.
this. So we
Can you
become
get
one.
in a little, please explain to me the psycho spiritual work that you're doing, especially with the veterans? Because, like I said, most people know, at least on this program, that I am a veteran. And I just think it's fantastic what you're doing, bringing that type of work to very linear people to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, I shared my early beginnings. I'm going to leap forward just briefly to let our friends know. Um, I was not in the military.
Mhm.
I turned 18 in 1969. My first year in college, I had a student deferment. I was protesting the Vietnam War. I was never against the military or the soldiers. I'm against the immoral, wrongful use of violence. I was protesting the war. Uh, First year I had a student deferment. Second year I was in the lottery. And for those who don't know, because we have younger people, during Vietnam, a lottery system was created for the draft because mostly minority people were serving and being killed, and it was really unfair. And so the government created a lottery system where pull birthday numbers out of your hat. And if you were born on January 1st and we pick it first, you're number one, you're going to Vietnam. And they did that for the whole year. I got number 244, and suddenly I didn't have to do anything. That's crazy. That's also a moral, what we now call moral injury. Don't tell me one third of my generation needs to do this and it's all by chance. And the middle third, maybe, maybe not. And one third of us were completely scot free and don't have to give anything.
Mhm.
We need rites of passage. We need to give back to the culture that has raised us. And the military is um, one of the very few genuine rites of passage we have left.
Well, it was.
Um,
I don't think it still is, but it was. Yeah.
right, and it's not serving that way anymore because of the small number of people who will voluntarily serve to get lots of money or to get out of the inner cities themselves. Yeah,
Right. And that's also interestingly, because I learned that a while ago when I started to meet people in the military that didn't they write a song about no, there's no senator sons in the military? Oh, everyone in the military, probably for the most part, unless there is a very brave somebody who came from a wealthy family, so most people in the military, at least the ones that I met, had nothing to lose. They joined because of their circumstances, or
right.
they knew that they couldn't afford college, so they
Mhm.
decided to join so they could get their college paid for because their families couldn't afford to send them to school. There's all kinds of underlying reasons why people join the military. It's not always patriotic.
Uh,
Mine was my dad and patriotism, but there were, yeah. Anyway,
we can go into that too. The whole meaning of patriotism has changed profoundly from our grandparents and parents' generation to ours to now.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
very, very different, and not requiring some form of service from everybody actually decays patriotism. You don't have to be in the military, but you got to give something back and you got to grow up. So,
hmm,
Peace Corps, Teacher Corps, Vista, hospital work, something to
right.
give and to grow and to not only think about yourself. So, I didn't have to serve during Vietnam. Back to ancestral trauma, not only my parents, my godfather, my mother's only brother, was a medic at the Battle of the Bulge. He survived, but he had very, very severe PTSD, and he was my godfather. He didn't say anything to me. He just stood next to me and shook. And I
Uh,
absorbed that. And I've worked very hard to learn his stories. All right. So,
that
with
I
all,
just want to make sure everybody understands that what you explained about your godfather is they call it secondary PTSD. So you don't necessarily experience the actual act of violence or trauma, you get it secondhand. So I just want to make
yes,
sure everybody knows.
I'm glad you shared that. And let's reinforce that message to everybody listening.
Mhm.
If you are a parent, a spouse, a child, a best friend, a neighbor, you're exposed. And that the energy, the toxin of the traumatic wound will affect you and get into you. And
Mhm.
please pay a lot of close attention to that. We're all infected. We all have PTSD. It's really how severe, how strong. And
That-
with our history and with what's
Yeah.
going on in the world today, we're all
Yeah.
traumatized every day.
Moment by moment, actually. But
Yes,
yes.
yes,
Mhm.
right. So for everybody out there exposed in any way, as Caroline just shared, you don't have to be at the traumatic event or directly involved with it. You just
No.
have to
Mhm.
exposure.
I actually interviewed a friend of mine who we were talking about the secondary PTSD because her experience was from her ex special forces husband who served in Afghanistan and Iraq and lost a limb. And as special forces, that's like a whole different world. She was carrying that weight as well. And that's where
Yeah.
I really got into the understanding of the secondary PTSD because it really messed her up, during the years afterwards and that time frame. So
Yeah. And in counseling and therapy work, we have to talk with the family members about what did you go through while your loved one was deployed.
Mhm.
Also, hell. So the famous British poet John Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost,
Mhm.
there's a line in one of his poems that says, this is for all the family members, especially the spouses. We also serve who only stand and wait.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I was not only in the military, I was also a spouse and I was also an army brat. My dad was in Vietnam. So, yay. There's that.
Give you a virtual hug for
Thank
everything you've been
you. Thank
through.
you. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get to work through that stuff. So,
Yeah. It's a
yeah.
lot of work, and boy, do we need our survivors to be sharing their truth and guiding the public to learn all of this because we all carry it.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. So I didn't
Oh,
have to serve in the military during the Vietnam War, and I was incomplete as a man. And I didn't want to go to an immoral war, and I did want to serve our country and our military and our veterans. So put all that together. I moved to a rural part of central New York State in 1975 with my master's degree in psychology, and I was invited into a medical practice. And it was just the very end of the Vietnam War, and they were coming back and had nobody to talk to. And they started to come into I was young, I wasn't 30 yet, and neither were they, but they started to come into my psychotherapy practice. And people said to me, don't work with them. They're crazy, they're dangerous, and nobody knows how to help them. And I said, they're my brothers. I I could have been there with them. They belong to us. I want to know and I want to serve. And I had decided much earlier, here's how karma works again. I had decided that if I was drafted, the only way I could serve and go to Vietnam would be as a medic, like my uncle in World War II.
yeah.
So at the very end of the Vietnam War, and they start to come into my new young therapy practice, and I went, oh, now I can get to be a medic, and I'm
Mhm.
going to take
Mm.
the vow, which I did, and I'm still working to fulfill it. And thank you for helping. I'm going to strive to be the best home front medic for the invisible wounds of war that I can possibly learn to be. And that's my calling. And so I've been doing that. Now it's gone on 50 years.
I like that name, Homefront Medic. That's very, I don't, purposeful. It's purpose. Something
Yeah,
there.
veteran gatherings. When I'm in veteran gatherings and we're wearing our name tags, put your service and where you served or what you did on your name tag. I put Homefront Doc,
And they
and
respect though.
I
That's
love it.
yeah,
I'm so proud.
absolutely. Yep.
And saying even more, and this is for also for everybody's listening, and especially perhaps for the people who didn't serve and find something missing in them. Uh, I have served, and I'm initiated, and I'm included. I'm not bragging. I'm sharing. Uh, My pin is a Vietnam War veteran, which is awarded to me by Vietnam Veterans of America for the work I
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And the vets say, you did more than us because you've been at it for 50 years. And also they say, thank you for not serving in Vietnam during the war with us, because if you had, you'd be as messed up as we are, and you wouldn't have been able to grow into a healer and help
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
So we're grateful you weren't there. And this is more important service to us.
Yeah, and
So
I'm
my
glad you
moral engine reconciled.
yeah, I mean that and it's fun. It's perfect because veterans have a respect for people who are willing to hang with them.
Right. Right.
Even if you've never actually served and seen combat, doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to hang not only hang with them, but in the work that you do, it's like stick with them and continue to stick because there's so many people. I don't care who we're talking about that I've noticed. It's like, once a year they say thank you for your service, but they don't do they actually stick with them? Do they actually do some service for them? What do they do? I'm sure there's people out there who do that, but I personally I don't like when people and I didn't see combat. I sent people over as part of my job as a medical admin in the army, but I never saw it. But the thing is that if you are saying thank you for your service, you don't even really understand the depth and the breadth of that statement, because a lot of veterans don't hold, I mean, they've seen some things that people haven't
Mhm.
seen. So what are you know what I mean? So it's just, it's hard when, even when I hear it, I get empathy about it for the other veterans, so it's
Yeah,
just a
I do.
very interesting statement to me. I
I don't. I with you. I don't say
Yeah.
it, and it shows incredible ignorance about what military service is.
Mhm.
I was at a conference where the conference facilitator was welcoming the huge audience with hundreds of people, and he said that to the audience. Several veterans jumped up, shaking their fists at him, and one of them screamed, "Don't you dare thank me for my service! My service was to kill people! Don't you know that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I
important
always
for people to know.
really important. I say, "Welcome home."
Yeah. Yeah.
Say, "Welcome home," and I try to make conversation, and welcome home. And how are you doing? Are you doing all right? I want to know.
Welcome home is a very, very powerful statement, and it not just for veterans, but in general. It's like when people finally, I did that. I have a Facebook group for old
Mhm.
souls, highly sensitives, and empaths. And when I first started that Facebook group, whenever people came into that group, I actually used that phrase, welcome home, because it felt to me like that was home for them. That was a place for them to come and heal. And that feels more welcoming and healing than
And
thank you
it's
for
to
your
come home and
service.
heal.
Right.
Home is where you come home to heal, not
Yes.
just to
Yep.
get a job or have a house. And
Right.
regarding that, we all know the word nostalgia.
Yes.
What people don't know, but now we're going to tell them and share, is that in the Middle Ages in Europe, what we call PTSD used to be called nostalgia. Nostalgia was the diagnosis. This person went to war and they can't come home. They're so
'Cause they're
changed.
stuck. They're stuck in the past. Is that why? Is that the
In the right, yes. They're
So now
stuck in the
where was
past.
this? What time frame was this?
Middle Ages Europe,
Wow, I did not know that.
and even more than that. So nostalgia was one of the early names for the diagnosis, and the word nostos is like psyche, is ancient Greek, right?
I
So
guess the Greeks knew
algae,
what they were talking about, right?
oh, they really did. They sure knew what they're talking about war. And I take, as you know, and I hope we'll get to it, I take veterans on healing journeys to Greece.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that. I
But
would
wait,
like.
one more
One
thing
more
about
thing. Okay.
in Greek, nostos means not your house, it means the soul's true home.
Huh.
And algia is pain, like neuralgia is nerve pain. So nostalgia is the pain of our souls not being able to come to their true home. That's really a core of PTSD.
The English language is really messed up. The meanings of words. I'm just hearing this. This is not the first time today I've seen something like this. So okay.
Okay.
Are you good? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
We're good to move on? Okay. I just want to make sure because I don't want to keep interrupting you. Okay, so let's really quick talk about the ancestry part before we get in deeper into the psychospiritual work and the work that you do with the veterans. I felt like you wanted to say something and about that in relation to um the work that you're doing now. Did you have something else you wanted to share about that, or
I'll share two things. One is more personal, and one overlaps into our healing work. So,
okay.
okay. So the more personal one is you and I shared our ancestry is Eastern Europe. My grandmother comes from a village that was sometimes in Ukraine and sometimes in Russia because
Kiev?
border changing.
It's
Oh, yeah,
Kiev, right?
she was about 2 hours outside of Kiev.
Okay, Kiev.
All right. I'm very happy to share with you and with everybody. Okay, I have three important books on this subject. One is called Warriors Warrior. No, sorry. War and the Soul. Another one is called Warrior's Return. And the third one is called Coming Home in Vietnam. War and the Soul has been translated and published in Bulgaria. Warrior's Return is translated and published in Ukraine and Russia and Italy. And since the beginning of this Ukraine-Russia war, I've been working by Zoom with both Russian and Ukrainian troops and healers. But how's that related to our ancestry? Both Russian and Ukrainian facilitators, when they introduce me, say, he's one of us. His grandmother was a Ukrainian Jew. His grandmother was a Russian Jew. He's come home.
Mm.
They both say it. It's like they're fighting over me. How quick the border was.
Oh,
But
oh,
but I feel welcomed home.
yeah.
It's healing for me, and my grandmother was a very, very sad, hurting person.
It sounds like your own healing journey for you by being there, even if you're not physically there, by being there with them.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I see in meditation and prayer time, I see my grandmother smiling and thanking me for bringing her home. And even more, since that, I met a man who's become a friend whose grandfather was a Cossack general at the same time. And so, and here's for everybody, we're doing an amazing healing practice. This man, his name is Nick. Nick and I'm writing letters from my grandmother to the Cossack general, and he's answering them and writing letters from his Cossack general grandfather to my grandmother. And
Wow.
that's so alienated and frightened of each other, and they keep telling their stories and becoming more and more human. It's amazing, an amazing exercise. And we both experience that it's not just us, but it's going through the generations.
That's wow. I can feel that. Like that's them talking to each other through you in the general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And I feel right now, I feel my grandmother smiling and thanking us for receiving this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I get that. I understand that. I actually and it feels like it's happening again. When you said that, I thought about it because one of the healing work I did with my mother and my grandmother, it was EMDR, some EMDR work. And at the very end of the EMDR session, they weren't nurturing. Most European women are not nurturing because they had to be strong, right? So I could feel them doing this. And when you said that about your grandmother, it was almost like I could feel your grandmother doing the same thing with me. That was quite interesting. Yeah. Thank you for that.
So let's take the ancestral work from us and more personal level into the psycho-spiritual healing work.
Okay.
When
So yeah,
we
that's the psycho-spiritual understanding of post-traumatic stress disorder also, right? Is that can you get into that too? Okay. Perfect. This is great.
So regarding ancestors and ancestral healing work, when we take a life, we are rendering a person, we're chasing them into the ancestral world. The lives we take also become our ancestors, and we become responsible for those souls. My books, War in the Soul and Warrior's Return, have they're world surveys of warriorhood, warrior practices, especially for healing and homecoming. Other cultures throughout time, throughout history, have had much more effective and comprehensive understanding of the traumatic wound and ways for bringing their warriors home. I
Mm.
don't think humanity would be here if we hadn't learned how to heal warriors, since we've had so much war for so many thousands of years. Scholars count over 14,000 wars in the 5,000 years of recorded history. And when we study this history, we also realize that what we call PTSD always goes with war. The very first book we have is the Epic of Gilgamesh from ancient Sumeria. So what, that's 3 or 4,000 years old?
Mhm.
There's PTSD and moral injury in that book.
Nothing new.
No, it's nothing new. And we know of more than 80 names different cultures have given it through the ages. Most of them are much more descriptive and um, helpful and spiritually based than post traumatic stress disorder. It was called Soldier's Heart in the Civil War. Yeah, Soldier's Heart. And back then, the physicians and healers believed that the changes were to the heart, not the brain. And also, the changes are emotional and spiritual, not just physical.
So they really messed that up with the DSM thing.
Ugh,
Yeah. Or should I have even not brought that up?
it's okay. Um, we can spend our hour talking about challenges and troubles.
Right. No, we won't go there. Let's go back to this.
Yes, we'll go back to this instead. So, everybody, that's healing. Get close and stay close, and don't get scared when scary stuff comes to the surface. That's healing.
That's healing. It's challenging, but it's healing. Yeah.
One of my special forces buddies says, when people ask me how I am today, I say, buy me a cup of coffee and sit with me for an hour, and I'll tell you. I don't want or need your drive-by caring.
Mm,
So, yeah, get close and stay close and listen and open your heart. And as you said before, Caroline, what do our warriors want from us? They just want us to get it. Just get it. Do you get it? And they know if we get it or not, and if we're really listening.
to clarify that though, it's not even the act of getting where they are. It's not the act of getting what they say. It's the act of getting their humanity. It's the act of being present. It's like, yeah, they may sit down and they may say something that you don't want to hear, but can you hold that space? And I talk about grief work all the time where people, when someone starts crying or grieving, we have been taught to stop, and you can't do that. So to me, that's the getting it part of it, where you're holding the space and allowing for it. That's where they feel safe and comfortable enough to talk about it. So it doesn't matter what they're talking about, just being there for them is what they're asking.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And
Okay.
so we'll push your comments a little farther. To everybody, let the emotions be present. Don't try to make it better and make people feel better by calming down the grief or the pain or the anger.
Hmm.
And allow the symptoms to be present, because most of our medical and psychological healthcare symptoms are all about symptom reduction so people can be comfortable so they can stay in their conventional everyday lives. That doesn't heal. It may help you be functional, but it doesn't bring inner healing, doesn't resolve the pain and the suffering.
Well, it stays stuck in the nervous system if you don't let it out. So that doesn't make, I mean, I hear you. That's what they do. But yes,
Well, that's what they do. And
that's what they
so and that's what we don't do and we don't wanna do. We want and need to let the stories and the emotions emerge. And very often the listener or the therapist has the harder time. I don't want to hear such terrible things. And therapy tends to say, well, you don't have to. We have brief therapies now. We can resolve this by going around your story and you never have to tell it. No, that's like a lobotomy. Cut off the most intense, important period of your life and never visit it so you can be okay. Well, you're not okay that way.
no, not helpful.
So back to ancestral healing and how this related to the soul. When we do harm to the earth or to another person, we bond with that person forever. Violence is intimate. Many of the soldiers I work with, the troops I work with, call it reverse intimacy. When we're loving somebody, we're intimate, and when we're being violent towards somebody, it's incredibly deep and intimate and passionate, and we're penetrating and changing your life. But it's a reverse intimacy because we're destroying rather than loving and creating. And so everybody who has served in the combat zone has that kind of hidden reverse intimacy with people they encounter. And we have to heal and transform that. There's an African proverb that says, my enemy is someone whose story I have not yet heard. When we go to war against another culture, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know their story, the individual or the collective story. We know almost nothing about the Middle East. When we went to Vietnam, there was one book in English published about Vietnam when we went to war there. We didn't know anything. We don't know what it means to them, why they're fighting, what we mean to them. So becoming intimate with the other is uh, praying for the spirits whose lives we took, working with their souls, and they often appear in dreams. So don't chase your dreams and your nightmares away either. There's soul medicine trying to come to you and reach you. And so if you're seeing somebody, one of your own or one from the other side, coming to you in a dream, that soul is trying to reconnect with you and reconcile with you. So welcome it, talk to it, work with it, make an altar for it, pray for it. So it's really, really important. So we have transgenerational trauma going backwards and forwards because we've taken
Mhm,
lives of young people also. And we have to do the work of reconciliation with the other and with the spirits. And again, traditional cultures had so many ways of doing this that our culture doesn't have. So another severe form of neglect
mhm,
is the way we bring warriors home.
mhm, mhm. Well, I
Utterly
mean, especially
and
with death and connecting with the ancestors, everyone is suffering from lack of connection. I mean, I remember when I was living in Hawaii, we were driving past a cemetery and they literally had the whole family at the grave site having a food and music and all these other things. So, but here everything is so somber and we try to push it away. We try to hide everything from the soul to be able to heal. It's just such a different, oh my gosh. I don't even know what
other
to
than well, let me okay. Again, in my books, there are lots and lots of examples of how other cultures today and also in other times and places bring their warriors home. And we could talk for hours about that because there are so many rituals and so many principles of healing uh, that are included that are all about how to tend the soul and return it successfully into community. But let me tell a quick story about homecoming because everybody has pictures. If you're not a veteran yourself or a loved one, you still know the stories of how we in America, the way we bring warriors home and the way we fail to. Here is a homecoming story from our Native American community in Seattle, and the contrast between how they brought their warrior home and how the mainstream does it is the
Mm,
key. So, um, I worked with a woman who was a Korean War. She was Native American. She was from the coastal Salish people, and she was a medevac nurse in the Korean War. So she spent most of her time straddling the helicopters, taking care of our wounded as they were flown out of the battle zone.
wow.
When she came home, yeah, wow, bless her. When she came home, her entire tribe came to the airport to greet her. And as she was flying into the airport, she looked down and she saw they were all on the ground, dozens and maybe hundreds of people in a huge medicine wheel configuration.
Huh, that's not
She
surprising.
landed, right. Not to you and not to me, right? The people, not the people who get it. So she landed and the whole tribe was there. Nobody touched her. Nobody went up to her. The medicine men and women only were
Mhm.
between the tribe. Welcome home, daughter. Now we are taking you into the wilderness for 3 months to do the intensive prayers and practices and rituals we have to take the war out of you
Mm,
before you're allowed to return to our village and your family. Because if you bring it to the village, we're all going to be polluted. We know how to take it out of you, so you'll be fine. And they did. And she became a tribal leader and elder herself. Incredibly happy and peaceful and no problems. So it's possible to heal well. It's possible to bring people home. Um, this should take a whole hour, but
we're
let's
talking about a series. We might yeah, we might have to do a series. Okay. Were you
okay. So
this
to psycho-spiritual
yes, yes.
understanding of PTSD. Okay. We call it PTSD. That's a modern quasi-scientific acronym. to make it into a diagnosable medical psychological condition. The other 80 names are not like that. Most of them are not clinical, they're descriptive, like
Mhm.
soldier's heart
Mhm.
or old sergeant syndrome, irritable heart, descriptive and poetic, so we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
All right. Since we're stuck with the acronym PTSD, I translated in two different ways: post traumatic soul distress
Okay.
ra- rather than stress disorder. Because a stress disorder points to the nervous system as the main disturbed component, and it's only part of us. A holistic definition of any kind of healing would be body, mind, heart, and soul in community with transcendent purpose. PTSD as a stress disorder only talks about the brain, the nervous system, the body.
Yeah.
That's a part of the puzzle, but we have to do all those pieces. So post traumatic soul distress. And when we say that, we also understand the symptoms are the way the soul talks when we've lost our language and we can't explain things.
And so let me ask you this question though. How do you being in that environment of being you're a therapist or a psychiatrist?
I'm not a psychiatrist, PhD.
A PhD. Okay. Okay. But the thing is that like with all the everything is always leading back to the clinical, and clinical doesn't work with human. It doesn't go together. And the way you're describing it, just because you don't have a degree in therapy or psychiatry, it sounds like you understand more about the completion of the human than most of the people. Now I can see why people could not figure me out who I was going to see. That makes sense now just by you explaining that.
Mhm.
Wow.
Carl Jung actually said that only 2% of the population can understand this material. Like, we have a lot of education to do. And yes, so and to your comment, for everybody, whether you're a veteran or not, when you go for a counselor or therapist, really make sure you feel like there's a match, a
Yeah.
fit. Person really understands you in a deep way and practices deep listening,
Mhm.
not just sticking you into a diagnostic category and saying, this is the protocol, and definitely not, this is the medication, because that's just to squash the symptom, not to listen to you.
Mhm.
So, PTSD, post traumatic soul distress, and all of our symptoms are the soul struggling to express itself when it has no other way to talk.
Mhm.
And PTSD is post traumatic social disorder because our entire society is in disorder from the collective trauma we all have. And because the way we bring our warriors home does not match the warrior heritage or legacy or experience. And so we're actually putting them in disorder. And there's a concept people are hardly aware of called a disease of adaptation.
Okay.
PTSD in the American version is largely a disease of adaptation, which means I'm troubled, I'm coming home. The society is not, and the helpers are not at all prepared to bring me home. I have to adapt to this culture. And much of what we call PTSD is adaptation to the individualistic, competitive, capitalistic American culture they're supposed to fit back into, rather than supporting them in healing and becoming elder warriors and
But
continuing to serve.
But this is very good information because this also fits into my head when you talk about it into programming because we're also doing the exact same thing to kids in school and as we raise them. And so we're always cycling back into a disease of adaptation.
Yes,
Always. I said that right, right? Disease of adaptation. Yeah. We're always trying to adapt. We're always trying to adapt to something that doesn't fit us.
right.
Whether we're
Yes.
a warrior or a child or just random person out there who everyday person, we're all trying to adapt and we're having a lot of trouble with that right now. And always have. I've never been able to adapt ever. I don't want
And we
to
should,
adapt.
right. We should embrace non adaptation and see its creativity and help people become their true creative authentic selves
That's
rather
like
than
okay,
force
non
them.
okay.
Right.
All right. Thanks for putting me off on a whole nother wow. Okay.
So with that understanding of PTSD, soul distress, and social disorder,
Yeah.
formula for healing is it's it's actually simple. Spirituality in community. We do our soul work together with and for each other in a community setting where we all listen and witness really, really deeply and let everything emerge that needs to emerge. And
Exactly what my intentions are with this podcast is that because you can't heal isolated. It's impossible. I've tried. It does not work that way. Okay. Wow. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I'm done asking you questions. I quit. That was it right there. Holy cow. Oh,
well, you know what?
do have a question.
Okay. Go.
We can keep going. It's okay. I'll ask the question. So, will you give like one story of a transformational healing of post-traumatic soul distress and social disorder with a veteran that you worked with?
Sure, I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Um, I have lots of stories. I'm going to tell one rather completely so we can see how it works. You can cut it later or figure out how to use it. Okay. So, another one of my many practices is cultural immersion. So, I bring veterans and family members and peace activists and protesters back to to Vietnam, and we immerse in the culture and meet with their veterans and learn and practice their healing techniques as well. Uh, and that really makes people friends and in it together. I'll quote one of my favorite people in Vietnam. His name is Tom Tien. He was a Viet Cong veteran who was left on the battlefield for dead. He hosts my groups every time. He's such a beautiful man.
Wow.
He says to American veterans, Viet Cong saying to American veterans, from now on and forevermore, Vietnamese and American veterans must be the lips and the tongue of the same mouth telling the world the same story.
Uh,
The war was for all of us. We all experienced it. It actually makes us brothers. I'm going to cry again.
You already got me. Sorry. Too
Well,
late. I'm first.
we don't apologize for our tears.
No, I said, I'm sorry. I'm first. I'm first at the crying. You don't get to be first. I did it.
Okay. Our veterans say to the Vietnamese, why are you being so good to us after what we did to you? And their answer is this is also a quote because we're brothers and sisters who survived the same hell.
Ah,
And that made us brothers and sisters forever. And Caroline, this is a big vision and it's getting too big, but this is a recipe for world healing. Get the Russians and the Ukrainians talking to each other instead of killing each other, or the Palestinians and the Israelis. Tell each other your stories. Share your grief. Share your pain. You've both been abused for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the
yes.
same.
It's,
Enter the trauma together
yeah.
as
Yeah.
partners in healing, and we can
Listen,
do this.
I got to say something though. I mean, and I don't know how this works yet, but it doesn't matter how to deal with it on the other side. But those of us who are doing this type of work, like you're talking about, like you're doing, I hear this all the time. It's like throughout the years, decades, we've been separated. We're separated from a higher power. We're separated from the earth. We're separated from each other. We're separated from ourselves. We're not meant to be separated. We're meant to work together and be together and heal together and do all these different things together. That's how it is. But that feels like the thing that will be the ultimate um uh I don't even know, healing experience or growth experience or expansion experience for the soul if by bringing everyone together like that. I mean, we don't have to have the people that don't want us to be together, but we have to have each other. We still have to have each other.
Yes.
So
Yes. Mhm.
that?
Actually, yeah. Another quick lesson from ancient Greece. The word idiot does not refer to an stupid person. Idiot is somebody like idiosyncratic. It's a person who keeps themselves separate. Very intelligent person who stays indoors and doesn't mix with people and whatever, stays in their own narrow cubby. That's an idiot. A, s- a person of low intelligence who's out in the world and interacting with others is not an idiot. That's a healthy person.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm glad you brought that. What was that?
oh, I was going to tell the story.
Oh, well, let me say this real quick. It's like I was born in Germany, and so my dad was American, and my mother was Czechoslovakian. And so when we came back over to the United States, I did grow up in an American family, but I also have another culture. Ever since I was a child, when I looked at the world, I looked at it a little bit different than being just straight being raised. And I've taught I always see things differently. There's flavor in other cultures in my, that's how I looked at it growing up. And just watching how things are working. And I met this woman who I want to say was about 20, 25 years ago in Midland, Texas. And she was friends, she went to high school with my ex-husband. And I was telling her, oh my gosh, I wasn't even talking about something in some beautiful place in Europe. I was talking about something I'd visited in North Carolina. It was so beautiful, the trees, the this, the that. And I was telling her about it. And she's like, oh, I would never leave Midland to go and see that. I don't, that, I mean, just this tunnel vision type of thing. And I just looked at her and I was like, wait, what? And then about 3 or 4 years later, and she came up to me and she's like, you know, I got to tell you, I got a chance to go to North Carolina. And I see what you were saying a few years ago when I was telling you at it. It was beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, because you got out of your box. So there's this box that they boxed us in this country. And that's all we get. That's all we get. So, okay, one more story, and I've got some other questions I want to ask you. I'm excited to ask you because you're the perfect responder to this stuff.
So I shared that I use cultural immersion as a major healing practice. So I told a story about the Native American and in their culture, how they bring somebody home in contrast to ours. And we've heard some stories from Vietnam. Uh, and I also lead healing journeys to Greece. And a lot of our warriors, people love Greek mythology, but our warriors really love and respect the ancient Greek warrior tradition. So I'm going to tell a story about a profound and comprehensive healing that I facilitated in Greece. Right. So a man named John was a Vietnam combat veteran. He had been an RTO, a radio and operator way out front. 3 times he was the only survivor of his unit to walk out of the jungle. He's very confused about why he's still alive. One of
Mm,
those times he spent the whole night in a foxhole with his dead lieutenant, talking to him as his only companion. So John was really hurting and haunted. But this is his healing story. John was actually not in ongoing psychotherapy with me. We met, we were introduced by a mutual colleague. We talked a while, and I told him about my healing journeys to Greece, and so he went on one of those. Okay. Two major rituals that we did for John that brought utter transformational healing. First was in Athens, where a couple of days after we got there, I told him, the next day, tomorrow is for you. We're going to the ancient warrior cemetery from ancient Athens, where
mm,
like their version of Arlington Cemetery. We're going there tomorrow and we're going to do ritual for you there. We went to the cemetery. When we got to the site, he couldn't even walk in. He said, this is harder for me than the Vietnam Wall. I feel their spirits. There's
mm,
countless dead warrior spirits in there. I can't go in. Our group massaged him and held him and tended him. And the Greek people who were the staff of the site all came and invited him in and gave him water and tea and helped him to calm down. So the community was gathering around him while he was in distress. We were immediately starting spirituality and community. When he was calm enough, we did a long sacred meditation walk through that ancient cemetery. Feel the spirits that are here. Remember what happened here then and how it's the same as what we've experienced, and let yourself feel the warrior spirits. So we're walking through the cemetery, and at a certain point, I said, John, now it's time for you to pray and meditate. Pick out one of these gravestones and just sit on it and call for your soul. He chose one of the stones. He leaned against it and closed his eyes and opened his hands. He was praying very hard, and our group surrounded him and the stone. Some people were doing therapeutic touch, hands-on healing. Some people were just praying or meditating. John sitting against the warrior tombstone for a while, and then in deep meditation, and his face was all twisted up. Suddenly, his eyes bolted open, and he had a huge smile, and he threw his hands up and said, by the way, that picture is in the book he wrote on his book cover. So his name is John Fisher, and you can look up his book, The War After the War, about his PTSD healing. All right, so he threw his hands up. He had a huge, bright look on his face, and what happened? I don't know what happened, but the light just came on inside. It's been dark inside me since the war, and the light just turned on. The light just turned on. I feel great. Okay, great. So we're not done. We're just starting. We left the cemetery and did a longer walk through the that ruined part of the ancient city. And then I told everybody to meet at a certain spot, which was in ancient times, in ancient Athens. Pericles was the leader of Athens who built the Acropolis, and he was the leader at the beginning of the Peloponnesian War. And he gave a very famous funeral oration. I forget what year, around 439 BC. I don't remember the exact year. Anyway,
Can't remember yesterday, so it's okay.
doesn't matter. It's a beautiful speech about what a good, healthy society is and the warrior's place in the society to uphold its highest values. So we went to that spot right where Pericles spoke, and I read excerpts from that speech that were relevant to our story, the American story. And then we invited John to stand where Pericles actually stood and tell his story and make his own speech. He told us very much of his war story right there with a lot of emotion that he was releasing from the cemetery and then the speech. And the very last thing he said when he was done emptying himself with these words for everybody, for all of our warriors out there. He said, from now on and forevermore, I am no longer a Vietnam veteran. I am a spiritual warrior whose place of service was in Vietnam.
Wow.
All right, that's half of it. We continued with me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We continued traveling around sites that I had picked out in Greece, and the last site we went to was called the island of Kos, Kos, and that island is where Hippocrates,
Hmm. Hmm.
the first father of scientific medicine, came from. All right. People don't know this either. Hippocrates was the child and the grandson of priests of Asclepius, the healing god of the ancient Greeks. And they practiced what was called dream incubation, the equivalent of a Native American vision quest, except you're going for dreams and you're doing it, well, they did it outdoors in caves originally, and then they eventually built temples where people came and they got holistic treatment until they were stable enough to go on a dream quest to encounter the healing gods and goddesses. Okay? We do that. I've written books on that, and I do that in Greece. We got to the island of Kos, Hippocrates' home, and Hippocrates was the son and grandson of priests who led this, and Hippocrates wrote about it also, and they did it on that island. So we visit the healing sanctuary. for the day, and we do a lot of meditation and prayer and preparation work there. And then we went back to our hotel and set up a dream incubation chamber. The whole group tends John, and there was another Vietnam veteran on that trip. The two of them were going to incubate all night, which means you fast and you pray all day long beforehand, and you set your intentions for the healing you're trying to achieve. And then you go to sleep and you just lay there and you fast and you pray and you wait for as long as it takes for dreams or visions to come to you. Okay. That night, oh, and then we always have supporters. There's a candle lit and people are sitting with the person supporting and praying or there if they need any help. Sometimes people have very strong catharsis during these experiences. Well, all night long, John kept having combat nightmares. He'd have one, he'd wake up shaking and sweating. His supporter would say, "Are you done? Do you want to end this?" And he'd say, "No, no, I know I'm not done." He'd go back to sleep. I always go with people in the dead of the night from 2 or 4 a.m. on. And so I was with John then at the end, and same thing. He kept waking up looking like he was still in combat, but then he chose to go back to sleep. I was with him at dawn when the sun first came through the window. And at that moment, when the sun was just rising, John, like he did on that gravestone, he shot up in bed and his face was as bright as the sun. And he said, "That's over. It's done. I'm all right now. I'm well." "What do you mean, John?" Oh, I said, "Good morning, Brother John. I'm so happy to see you. And you look great. What are you saying? What's done?" He said, "I don't know. All I can say is it's out of me. I'm done. I feel clean and pure inside." Well, this was about 15 years ago. John and I are good buddies. He's written this book and others about his war healing experiences. He loves to call me up and tease me and say, "Ha ha. When we met, I couldn't sleep at all and I had nightmares. Now, dude, I sleep better than you. And now, dude, I don't need an alarm clock anymore. I sleep like a baby." And he hasn't had any more combat nightmares or severe symptoms in all this time. And he's become a healer for others. He and I have been back to Vietnam. And since then, he leads his own healing journeys to Vietnam. And he works as a volunteer in VA hospitals with other vets. And he's remarried and very happy. So that's one example of doing the soul healing work in community, in an environment that supports it, and how deep into the inner world we can go to really transform it. And John is truly he's a spiritual warrior. And Vietnam didn't take that away from him. Vietnam was where he transformed
Oh,
first
right.
to a
Yeah.
wounded warrior and then to a spiritual warrior.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Oh, so you
Okay.
have a few concluding
I do.
questions?
I do. So before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you some questions that I ask all my guests. And the first question is, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their healing journey, what would it be?
This brings tears to my eyes also. A beloved World War II veteran, he's passed now, but we worked together for a long time. He did incredible national level healing work for veterans. He wrote one book, he wrote his story and he left it behind. And the name of it is Courage, Coward, Courage. He was talking to, his name is Ed Block, Bloch. He was talking to himself. Have the courage to tell my truth and reveal it all and don't hide it anymore. And trust that people will receive and listen. So that's my one message. Have courage. Come on out. Come home to us. Trust us. Let us receive you.
Mm. Uh, how do you define awakening?
Earlier, we shared our understanding that we are all programmed into a collective trance. And almost everybody is operating along that rail. Awakening is breaking out of the collective trance and seeing and receiving and experiencing something of all that is. My story of the butterfly and of the dream That awakened me at 4 years old.
Mhm.
I didn't choose it. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know such things existed, but I knew afterwards that I was awake and different. So
Beautiful.
out of the trance and into the spirit connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. It took me over 35 years to awaken, but hey, sometimes there's slower versions of that.
You, dear friend, usually they're slower.
Yeah, that's me.
I don't know why the gods chose this 4-year-old street kid from the Bronx, but they did.
The Bronx, yeah. Okay. What do you believe soul divinity is?
Oh, my definition of soul is the droplet of God that's in each of us.
Droplet of God in each of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So soul divinity, the soul is divine. It's the
Mhm.
divine drop that's in us that turns this stuff into living, breathing, feeling, questing life.
Well, so I have to say that's those are the definitely the two that I wanted to hear from you because when I named the podcast Awakening Soul Divinity, I was thinking about how the awakening is the awakening of the human into soul divinity. And I think you nailed it. You nailed it. How can people get in touch with you?
Ah, okay. Thank you for that question. I do want to recommend my books again, especially uh, the 3 books on war healing are War and the Soul, Warrior's Return, and Coming Home in Vietnam.
Okay.
Uh, I'm also going to recommend my book Soul Medicine because that's about using the ancient Greek tradition for soul healing, and there are several chapters in there on bringing warriors to Greece and how we use that tradition for the healing. So that one way to get familiar with my work is to look at my books. And as I shared, very much of what we want to talk about spiritual and indigenous ways of healing are in these books.
And can you, even though we're going to put this information in the description, can you also mention your website? Because is that where we can
Yes.
the books are on the web? What's the website?
Um, I have 2 websites.
Oh, two. Okay, that's okay. I do too.
What am I thinking? I used to have 2 websites. Never mind.
Never
It's just
mind.
edwardtick.com.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And like I said, all this information, the links to the books and the website and whatever else what other links you share will be in there. And is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yes, we can do this. We can heal ourselves and each other on our planet. We can. What we call PTSD is not inevitable,
Mm-mm.
and it doesn't have to be a lifelong chronic condition that ruins your life. You can come home to your soul and to all of us, and we really need each other. As you keep saying, we can't do it alone, and we shouldn't do it alone. We need each other. And doing this work brings transformational growth and healing to everybody. We're not just talking about our warriors. All of you who are not warriors, you need your warriors. We need our warriors, not just to protect us, but to awaken the inner warrior in you and to understand
Mhm.
this archetype and how powerful and beautiful it is. And we've rendered our warriors shadow warriors. And what we're doing in this work is bringing them from the shadow into their spiritual warriorhood. And it's really, really beautiful and divine. So let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. And you know what? I think we're all warriors because we've all been traumatized. So I think that that's a way to look at being that person that is powerful, who can do the healing, who can step out, who can walk through it, who can look. If I can, if I can do this from the time I'm a child for over 35 years, and then go into deep dark nights of the soul for 4 years straight, and end up on the other side getting it, understanding this stuff even more, I think anybody could do it. I always say this: be willing, be courageous, be free, but you got to make the choice. Just saying. So,
Yeah.
Ed, thank you for opening your heart and sharing your profound journey with us today. You've shown us that trauma can also be a path of healing and initiation. And your work reminds us that true healing is not only psychological, it's archetypal, it's spiritual, and it's deeply human. And in my own work, I call this giving grief a voice, because when we honor the soul's wounds, they can transform into wisdom and compassion. So, for those of you in the audience, thank you for walking this path with us on Awakening Soul Divinity.
Thank you for being here. Click on one of the videos below to keep going on your healing journey. And don't forget to subscribe.